Alright, for the third time, we are rolling.
Alright, cool. Why don't you give us the introduction you've been prepared?
Oh my god.
Oh, you don't have one?
No, I don't.
Oh, I told her last week. I said, you have to introduce this episode. And she's like, yeah, I got it. I text her every day. She's like, oh, I've been practicing. I got it down. And she didn't. So it looks like this time, Todd was the one who was responsible. Joke's on Maureen and the audience's expectations. So life is a road with faces on it. Is that the quote? Do you remember?
No.
Life is a road paved with faces. Stories like life are a road.
I'm just gonna start talking.
There's a quote about it. It's something stories in life are more memorable.
It's the people you meet along the way.
Yeah, it's not the road that you travel, it's the face you meet along the way.
Yeah.
That's what that was.
And okay, well, that's a preface as any. Today we are talking about character, like what makes good characters, goals, motivations, everything that makes up who you run into when you're in a story. So, let's get started.
All right, I hear somebody has some questions.
I do.
I thought I was going to ask you questions.
Okay, all right. You want to start?
No, you can.
All right. So, I was looking up and all sorts of different things, reading about characters, and every time I Google something on character development, I come up with these questionnaires about characters that they're 109 questions you need to ask your main character, or
see, I'm gonna be real. I've been writing books for 10 years and I hear that shit and I'm like, this is why I'm not the typical writer, dude. I hear you should ask your character these questions. You have a conversation with your character, I'm like, what? Yeah. What the fuck? Who does that shit?
Yeah.
Maybe that works for some people. I don't know. It confounds me. So anyhow.
Yeah. No, I see them a lot, and I'm like, why would I need to ask what my coffee or tea, what my character drinks? The kid's in high school. He doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, if it works for people, have weird creative things.
Yeah.
I just find that one a little. I don't know. I get you got to feel it out. You got to know your character inside and out.
You get so many free printables though when you fill out these questionnaires.
Yeah, and then you mail them to the person, and they send you.
Yeah, I mean,
they send you a toy, and then they write a book with your character in it.
Yeah, and then they just.
I think with writing characters for me, it's more like acting. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
I get in the head, especially first person, I was doing for a while. I get in their head and think about what they do in the situation, as though it was viscerally happening to myself. I don't live like them. That'd be crazy. My life would be ruined if I did. But I do see it as very similar to acting personally. And I get that because actors are weird too. You pull Daniel Day-Lewis, and maybe that's how he does it. He asks himself those questions, would my character hold his pinky out when he drinks the tea or not? I don't know.
No, I get that. I mean, I agree that there should be some kind of... You should know your characters by the time you start writing it, or even just at some point before you finish it, you should figure it out. But at least when I write, I sort of think about their goals, what are they trying to achieve, what motivates them, what their flaws are, why they're in the story.
I guess I just don't understand the dialogue between author and character as though they're having a conversation.
Yeah.
And maybe I misinterpret, conflating that in my mind with what they're trying to say. But I can imagine being hey, buddy, do you drink tea or coffee?
Yeah.
And that's what I always think of when I hear somebody sitting down with another human being and interviewing them, and I just don't see it that way. I don't know. That's not how my mind works.
Yeah. No, I get that. I mean, everybody has their own different creative process, but that really isn't I don't know. That's something that's never worked for me. Coming from someone who's tried it, and it doesn't feel organic to me. It's just kind of
it's just silly. I think.
Yeah.
But so are vocal warm-ups. Hear James Hetfield warming up to say yeah a bunch of times at a Metallica concert, and it sounds goofy, but that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
So what was your lead-in? What were you leading into with that? Before
I was just saying,
disparage anybody who's different than me.
No, I guess I was I kind of run into a lot of that. There's not really as much specific stuff that I was running into outside of just a lot of this weird general like character questionnaires, and it seems like each list is longer. I saw one once that was 395 questions, and it's still sitting on my flash drive somewhere that I have not filled it out yet, because then you're supposed to do it for each character. And I'm like, if I'm gonna have man with box, I need to know what his 3 worst fears are.
Yeah,
But-
see, and that's my thing. It sounds so like, to me, it sounds so structured and rigid in a way that I just don't think you need to be with writing.
yeah.
I think I don't know, like did Charles Dickens have that? How the fuck did he write Great Expectations if he didn't have that questionnaire? You know?
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing for me, is it seems a little too much like a fad diet
Yeah.
for writing.
I think so too. Like I said, I just usually stick to like their personality and interests as it remains relevant to the story. I guess like if like for instance I'm writing a character who is very into art and stuff like that, and it's like yeah, one of her main, because it feeds into her main motivation is she's making like a comic book and stuff like that. So yeah, her personality and her interests like completely irrelevant to the story because that's feeds into the larger plot.
So I'm going to lead into something else. I don't want to talk for 30 minutes about something I didn't waste my time with.
Okay.
So I think there are 3 things to making a believable character, an interesting character. And I think it's math. I break it down to math when I'm disparaging writing. I say there are 3 things that a character should have. And this isn't like, well, I think it is the law to me, actually. I think there's 3 dimensions to a character. And these aren't the 3 dimensions. I'm not saying they are the 3 dimensions, but it's how I see it. A character needs to have strengths, weaknesses, and motivations.
Yeah.
And it could even be as simple as 1 for each. You know, like every blockbuster, all like the new Transformer movie, whoever's leading those movies, it doesn't have to be a wholly fleshed out, complex character, but to be interesting enough to carry the film or like be relatable on some basic human level. I think they need to meet those 3 criteria. And I break it down very, very to the element of a character. Like I'll use the example of my own, just so I know that better. I should have prepared with a fictional character, but I didn't think that far ahead. The character I was writing for a long time, Wesley Thompson, his strength is that he will not give up on anybody. He kind of believes in the world. His weakness is that he does not believe in himself. So there's a contradiction there. There's some complexity emotionally that he struggles with. And his motivation is, especially, from young adult on, is being a father, being there for his family. And that's not a great example, it's my own. So it's just the one that I know the most intimately. But on some little level, you got to try to hit all 3 of those. And going into the examples I use, and this is, an act of oppression, I suppose people will say if you're going to get butthurt about this, but look at the original Star Wars trilogy and the 3 characters heading that. Han, Luke, and Leia. They're the most famous trilogy of characters pretty much ever. I cannot name a more iconic trio. Now, look at, and I'm sorry, if you're handicapped or Jewish, turn the video off. I don't want to murder you by saying this. But the new trilogy of characters are not interesting at all. And I break it down when people say, no, they're just as good as Han, Luke, and Leia, which is a lie. Let's be real. It's a lie. Nobody's going to remember these guys in 30 years other than being historic for being in this film. But break it down to strength, weakness, and motivation. And, Rey, we'll say, has strengths because she's good at everything, and everybody loves her.
She's like a DC character.
Yeah. The thing with DC characters, no, that's actually a very great point. I'm glad you brought that up. You have, like, Superman and Batman. And Superman, he's all-powerful, but he has this internal conflict of, like, especially with Zod, I think that's why people love the Zod plotline so much, is that he has to betray his own race in order to save humanity. And he lost his world, he lost his family. So then other Kryptonians come, like, we're going to rebuild, and he has to say, no, I'm not doing this to humans, despite humans essentially being ants to him. And I just want to make another point on that, since we're talking about political correctness. It's fascinating to me that people don't like Zack Snyder's DC movies. I get why they don't like them, and they're not perfect movies, so I totally understand that. I didn't like them when they came out, but they're the most progressive superhero movies. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
For real. Yeah. Like, that's straight up about immigration. They're pro-immigration movies. And it's just strange to me, not that people dislike it and there's that, but that it's associated with right-wing people, despite the fact that they're the most left-wing superhero movies. Like, look at Iron Man. That's a right-wing movie. He sold weapons to another country, and he's a rich playboy, and he's badass, and he plays classic rock music, and he kills foreign people. And then look at like Batman versus Superman, where like protesters are holding a sign saying about like immigration law and stuff, and they're the bad guys. Like right-wing protesters are portrayed in negative light, and it's a whole thing about just like accepting people no matter what their race or nationality is. It's kind of a pro-globalist series, so I don't know. That's just an interesting dichotomy. My point here is that I don't even know their names. I said Ray because I don't know the characters' names. Finn and Poe. That's it. I don't even know Poe as a character. Does he have any personality?
Not really.
He doesn't even have strengths that I know. He can fly a jet. That's cool.
He's got that.
He's a pilot. That's his character.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He's got that little droid guy.
Yeah, and I like the actor that plays him.
Yeah, they're all great.
He's great. Oh no, they're not all great. Let's not. Daisy Ridley is not great. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, she's good in other stuff.
Maybe.
Yeah.
She could be.
She was good in Murder in the Orient Express.
I really like the dude that plays Finn. He was really good in that until they make him just a shameless black stereotype that's really offensive halfway through the movie for no reason.
Yeah.
He starts as a complex character. It's like, oh, he's See, now we're talking about character. This is actually, I was gonna say this is off topic too much, but it's fitting in here.
Not.
No, it's not at all,
Yeah.
which is actually kind of funny. So he starts off, and he's a clone trooper or whatever, a stormtrooper, and then he sees people dying. He doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to kill innocent people. He sees it's wrong. So then he betrays them to go join the Rebel Alliance, or the fuck they're called in these movies. And
Resistance.
yeah,
I think.
and so that's really interesting. And then halfway he's kind of a coward, and he portrays himself as a war hero and some jokey stuff with Rey, and he's flirting with her and stuff, whatever. It's a little bit worse than he starts out as. That potential's kind of waning, but he's still, whatever his name is, that actor's so good in the role that you don't care. And then halfway through, he's talking to Han Solo. He's making these horrible, like, it really is like a minstrel show, it feels like, after a certain point, where he's with Han Solo, and remember they get the trash compactor lady, and you're like, yeah, that's how we do it. And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why? It's really offensive. So he goes from being like an interesting, complex character to a stereotype within one film. It's fascinating how much potential squandered. I've only seen the first of the new trilogy. I can't speak for the second. People are like, oh, you have to watch all three, and then you'll see that Rey has a weakness. And the twist of the third movie is like, I'm not going to watch 6 hours of characters I don't like in a story I don't like, because it might pay off at the very last minute.
That's why you should just bring back Jar Jar.
Now let's talk about the original trilogy. And Luke and Han and Leia, you could go for days. I'm not even going to embarrass myself by trying to, because it's been done so much better. And same with the sequel trilogy. Whether you like it or not, that's fine. There's many good things about the sequel trilogy. I'm not going to pretend like it's an F tier quality.
Yeah.
But they fail on a basic writing level as far as I'm concerned. In the original trilogy, and this is why I want to bring up Star Wars, is that Lucas, there's a recent interview with Rian Johnson where he said, oh, well, we want to try new things with whatever, Luke wakes up, or the fuck it's called, the second in the new trilogy, and what is it, The Last Jedi, and he's saying, we want to do new things like Lucas did with storytelling. We want to take risks. Yeah, the secret is that that's not true. Lucas didn't take risks in that way with Star Wars. Like, it's a very simple hero's journey story.
Yeah.
And if you want to look at how to create a character, I mean, I base my books off Star Wars. That's, I straight up have a Han, Luke, and Leia in my trilogy of books I'm working on. But look at the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell, and study that. And like, you don't have to do it and follow it to a T. I've had many characters that don't. I don't think it's like the law. But if you want a conventional storytelling 3-act structure with strong characters, study that. At least know it. Jazz musicians know the rules of music, and they break it because they know it so well. They know how to bend the rules without breaking them.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of a thing. There's something about Joseph Campbell. All my friends talk about it. Like, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm kind of studying Joseph Campbell and Star Wars and how it builds character. And they're like, yeah, I don't know. He said some stuff about the I Ching I disagree with. I was like, I'm not studying his thoughts on the I Ching. My grandpa said some stuff about some political thing I disagree with. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop talking to my grandpa. I don't know. It's just a silly thing.
I think what makes Star Wars, like, or at least the oldest trilogy, as good as it is that it doesn't really set out. It follows that basic hero's journey thing. It's not trying to redefine anything in that storytelling regard. And I think that's like, it's not trying too hard to be profound. And these characters, like,
Well, I think it is, though. I think it is profound, but it's profound on an emotional level.
yeah.
The
but it's-
filmmaking brings it to life, the world that he built, but
Yeah. But it's not too smart for itself. Like, you're not trying to, like, I don't know. It's not like someone who uses
It's a
big,
simple story, but it
complex
believes in
vocabulary
itself.
words in order to sound smart, and then they realize they don't know what they mean. Like, it has a lot of emotional depth, and that's what makes it so profound.
Yeah,
Like,
I
without even
think-
trying.
And I think that's the opposite. I wouldn't say without trying,
I don't know.
for sure. I'm not going to say that,
Yeah.
the film that defined American cinema wasn't trying.
I mean, to me, it seems very, like,
It looks effortless
Yeah.
because he does such a good job.
yes.
But I think I know what you mean. Though. It's hard work and emotion, and I'm not gonna say there's no ego, but I think Rian Johnson was trying to be pure intellectual and ego without actually putting that hard work in the same way. I'm sure he tried very hard. And then I like some of his other work. I'm not a hater on Rian Johnson. I think he's a very good filmmaker. I was excited when he was announced because I love Brick so much. I think it's one of the best movies of the decade. Once again, if you want to study a noir and noir plot development, character work, I think that's a great movie to go to for sure.
That was the one with Joseph Gordon-Levitt in it, right?
Yeah. Oh my god, it's a really funny. It's fucking brutal.
It is.
That ending twist, Jesus Christ,
Yes, I do remember this.
it's so brilliant. And that's the thing. I hate talking about like Rian Johnson in that way because I really respect him and he's a major influence on how I do my work. So I'm not saying disparagingly. Saying that the Star Wars, I'm not knocking the new trilogy because I want to hate it. I'm knocking it because I want to like it. A coach isn't going to just say to his team every day, hey, you did a great job. You can't improve anything. Actually, take it easy next practice. And that's how I try to look at it, where it's like, I'm trying to help through criticism. I'm not saying they're going to listen to my criticism, of course. But I try to always see it as I'm on your side. I want, if the next Star Wars Episode 9 or whatever is a 10 out of 10, nobody would be happier than me. I have zero faith it'll happen, but...
Or you could be like J.K. Simmons in Whiplash, and just,
Yeah.
are you rushing, are you dragging, or like, what did he say? He said the 2 worst words in the English language are good job.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think you should go as crazy as that guy,
No.
but Kubrick did, and he's Stanley Kubrick, so,
Yeah.
That's something to consider.
Yeah, he was a character. Speaking of characters, what characters resonate with you, Todd?
Oh my god. Is that real? I'm sorry. That's probably not the response you're hoping for. There's a lot of characters that resonate with me. I don't want to get into that and shit. So we're trying to talk in some fun way about the story crafting process. I don't know, I was watching Californication Day. I love Hank Moody. I like Lloyd Dobler. Those are 2 of my favorite characters. I like Woody from Toy Story. What are your favorite characters?
Man, I made an entire list, but I'm not going to...
Keep it to 3. Let's do top 3s, okay?
Okay. I was going to say, I would say, obviously, Spider-Man is my favorite.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
No, I really do like how, even growing up, like, this is stupid, but I always, like, looked up to him in a way, just because he was so relatable as a character. He had, like, those flaws. He was basically just, like, a kid who was trying to balance it all. He was trying to balance, at least, like, in the Tobey Maguire version, and even in, like, some of the, comic versions, like, in the comics, like, the world pretty much hated him. It wasn't like in the movies now where people are very, like, enthusiastic about Spider-Man. It was like people straight up hated him, and the police were always after him. He's a vigilante, so to deal with that, and then his aunt thinking he's a monster, and having to balance school, being married to Mary Jane, and the whole like death of Gwen Stacy. He's going through very real stuff, but he's also has a superhero aspect on top of that, and it just really makes him a well-rounded character. And I like being able to see the struggles, like seeing how he deals with that. And I think in a lot of ways, I don't want to say like bash DC or anything like that, but for me, I don't get that as much, like with some of the other characters I've seen from DC. But
I don't understand quantum physics. That doesn't mean that it's wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm kidding.
But another one I really like.
No, can I just say something real quick? I'll go back to my characters and actually talk about that more in depth then, because I like what you're doing.
Okay.
So Spider-Man is a very good example of strength, weakness, and motivation.
Yeah.
You could look at all those within Peter Parker. And weakness is kind of funny because he is like OP in a lot of ways, but he's still like his age hinders him. He can't join the Fantastic Four, Avengers.
Yeah.
He's a nerd. He's made fun of. and he's got the motivation. He always has to help his family and do the right thing by everybody, and that's almost kind of a weakness too, because he's in those situations where he can. And I think that Sam Raimi, especially his first one, I like the second best, but the first Spider-Man film that he made is a great example not only of the hero's journey, but also those 3 character points. Or you can say the whole trilogy is an example of the hero's journey, I suppose, but I think the first one does the structure the tightest, and that's why I cite that one as an example.
Say, another one would be Jason Street Season 1 Friday Night Lights. I think he has, like you said, the best character arc of anybody in that entire season, and Smash Williams, of course, but...
Yeah, I could just name every character.
Name
I'm
every
going to be
character,
honest,
like, they're all really
I thought
great.
Friday Night Lights, I was going to say Coach Taylor, but like, it's too tough. There's too many good ones. Like,
I know, it's hard.
it's like you're up on Mount Olympus, essentially, is how it feels watching that show
I know.
in the first season.
It's absolute perfection. But, because for him, it's like, you ran into this really horrible situation, this thing that has basically changed the course of your life. Now, how are you going to move on when the one thing you basically used to define your life is now, you can't do it in the way that you want to anymore.
Well, he also, he's very determined,
Yeah.
but yet he has a chip on his shoulder. He's kind of got an ego because he was like, had everything in life, so he gets very frustrated now when he can't get what he wants, which puts him in bad situations because he always he imagines things are just going to work out. He's very idealistic,
Yeah.
and his entire character is learning time after time that life does not always work out. You cannot always get what you want, and I don't know, he's one of my favorite characters for sure. What's your third?
I know you haven't really read this one, but Sutter Keeley Spectacular Now.
I've read that.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite books.
Oh, okay.
I that was like one of my big inspirations for young adulthood.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I love that book. I did not care for the movie because it totally just destroyed everything the book set up, but...
Yeah, I agree on both points. The book's probably my favorite YA book of the last, decade or so. I think it's amazing. I think from the very first page, Sutter's a compelling,
He is.
engaging, and just lovable character.
He
That's
is.
clearly fucked up.
Yeah. He's, he is very charismatic. He is very, you love this guy. Even though you realize, okay, he's an alcoholic, he's probably a bad influence on Amy, and pretty much everyone around him, he's just like this bucket with a hole, and he's just this pit. But he's so charming and lovable, you just want to continue on. You just want to root for this kid.
Yeah, I think I reviewed this book on my old YouTube channel, actually. I have to find that video. I don't know if I should,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty sure I did.
Yeah, and his whole motivation is just literally, finding that spectacular now, and that's what makes the last paragraphs of it so perfect. Is pretty much just sums up everything he's just been striving for this entire novel. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even. It's hard for me to talk about that book because I love it so much. To be honest, I know it's stupid, but I'm like emotional just thinking about it.
Tim Thorpe, besides Robert Cormier, he's my favorite author. I'm this guy is amazing.
So yeah, I'll go into mine like Hank Moody.
Yeah.
He's got the alcoholic thing as well. He's always got women and all that. But what I love about his character on the show is there's a deconstruction of the male power fantasy, showing it's actually kills you. Him moving to California, he wants to go back to. He moves to California to kind of work on film. His book's being adapted into a movie, and it's about the allure of celebrity, essentially. Having sex with whoever you want, doing drugs all the time, making movies, and it's all just bad, and it all just hurts his life. And he learns immediately at the start of the first movie, it basically is a movie, the first season, that all he wants is he just wants to be with, his daughter, the mother of his daughter, and he just wants to go back to New York and live his old life. But he's just too enmeshed in Hollywood culture, and it just ruins him. But he believes, he has this Don Giovanni syndrome, where he thinks there's something beautiful about every woman, and he can't help but fall in love with every woman that he meets. And even though he's sleeping with them and he gets physical pleasure out of it, it just hurts him more and more. And essentially he's being taken advantage of in many ways by these women. But he's always trying to be a good person. He's always got a good heart. There's a great speech his daughter gives to her mother, and I think the third or fourth season, where her mother says something about his potential. And the daughter says about her father, she's like, you can't be with him for his potential. He's not going to change. You have to accept him for who he is. Which I think is later on the show's 5th through 7th seasons, and you love it for the potential of what it used to have, more so than what it currently became. But I love that character. I love his struggles. Obviously, he's very charismatic and funny. I mean, if you want a course on confidence, you could just watch that show. What are the other characters' names? Oh, Lloyd Dobler. He's a great one. I think about him all the time. I relate to him more and more every year in ways that you shouldn't. Because, so what I love about him is that he's honest. Just like all the time. He's just very honest. He's just like not trying to put up false pretense or anything. He's just Lloyd. And he's nervous, but he's got a good heart, and that's what wins Ione Skye's character. What the hell's her name? Diane. Is it Diane Court? I feel so bad. I can't believe that I forget her name. She's one of my favorite characters ever as well. I love both of them. Lloyd and I think it's Diane Court. And she falls in love with that charm, which is the opposite of Hanks. It's not confidence. It's just him being kind of goofy, being an awkward dude who's just a nice guy. That's why everybody loves him. But yet he's kind of held back. You know, his father's in the military, you know, the mother. His sister's got this son. The dad dipped out on her, and he helps with his nephew. And he also, you know, he's too emotional. I mean, people talk about this scene all the time with the breakup. And it's kind of a thing now about, like, men and creepy. And I think the thing is that you're not supposed to root for Lloyd when he's hanging he has a boombox outside the window. Like, you are, because you want them to get back together. But that whole sequence with him driving around talking into the tape recorder and stuff, it's making fun of him too. Like, you're kind of laughing, being like, oh dude, like you've been there and you feel the emotions, but you get Fremschaden from seeing it as well. I mean, he goes too far, but that's a weakness, and it's showing that he's definitely pathetic in those ways. But I love Lloyd.
Number 3.
Did I say? Oh, Woody from Toy Story, of course. Yeah, you know, he's the leader. He's once again, he's a good guy who wants to do the right thing, but he's also, what's so fascinating is he's the villain of Toy Story, the first. Yeah. He wants to kick Buzz out. He's jealous. He's so protective of Andy that he tries to murder Buzz, essentially. It's funny because it's a kid's movie, but it's true. But he ultimately does learn the right thing. And, you know, I used to dress up as Woody all the time as a kid. Like, I would, like, it was like Halloween every day. I would just, my mom remembers it better than I do. I had a Woody bed. The costume, I had a Woody toy all the time. The day my mom's water broke, I was walking around a mall, my mom and my grandmother, and I had a Slink, you know the Slinky dogs?
Yeah.
Well, the one in Toy Story is called Slink. And I was walking Slink around the mall on the escalator and stuff. And that was the day my mom's water broke. And my brother was, I don't think he was born that same day. But, so yeah, those are my 3, and those are why, and very quick summation.
Yeah. So, I guess my next question is, so we're talking about characters or relatability, the emotions and things like that. How do you feel then about basing characters off of people that you know, or people that you've met, like real people?
You know, I don't give a fuck at all. Like, I truly used to. I used to be self-conscious about it, you know, and now I just don't care, because a lot of the most famous characters ever are based on a real person. A lot of the most famous characters are based on other characters. I mean, Dana Scully from X-Files is just Clarice Starling from Silence of the Lambs. Is how she started. Now, Dana Scully's much more famous and well-known than Clarice Starling. I try not to just have a character who's another person. I try to get the vibe or the core of what attracts me to that person in a character in a book, you know. I've even used some people's names as characters, but like just their first name, or I might switch a letter around or something. And it's usually not that this character represents this person or how I feel about this person. It's this person has this one quality that just is so interesting that I want that same character to have that quality. If that makes sense. I don't base the whole person, character around the person.
Oh, yeah, no.
But I definitely steal little traits, you know, like a chameleon, like a patchwork chameleon. Like, oh yeah, that's Robbie's sense of humor, but that's Dave's, you know, he stands in that position, or I don't know, that kind of stuff.
Because I think you sort of, when I took con law for like 3 weeks, like kind of when you do stuff like that, that sort of falls into the disabled category potentially.
Things nerds care about.
Yeah, just not getting us sued. No, I'm kidding. But
I'm going to be honest, though. Like, I mean, going back to James Joyce Ulysses, I mean, Buck Mulligan's based directly on a dude that Joyce had beef with. I mean, look at Alighieri's Divine Comedy. You know, like, it's straight up like naming politicians. Like, they're in hell for this reason, you know?
yeah.
Like, great literature, I don't think, is bound by that.
No.
Now, should I say, like, I was dating Stacy, and Stacy dumped me, so I'm putting a character in my book named Stacy, and it's, you know, and she left me for a guy named Rob, so, you know, she's with this douchebag named Rob, and they both get killed by a guy in a mask named Todd. No, you shouldn't do that. That's wrong.
What?
No, seriously though, like that's weird.
Yeah.
I disagree with that, of course.
I think it's definitely like piecemeal, pick and choose. Like if you like certain qualities and like, or you're sort of composing a character and you say, okay, I want like this person's sense of humor and this person's like sort of like general attitude or anything like that, and just
This
put them
person's
together.
ass.
Yeah.
That's the thing, guys. I think that's the
It's
creepiest
like
thing.
Frankenstein.
Where they're like, I don't know, I just don't see it this way. Where like, yeah, if I can make the perfect woman, I get like Jessica Alba's face and Scarlett Johansson's butt and Kim Kardashian's tits. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That's not. How do you even picture that? I picture a monster, like a Frankenstein thing. I don't know. I don't understand men. I think that's why I get so confused by a lot of these things people say I'm men. Because I'm such a not dude that it confuses me because I'm so far removed from a typical man. But I do that with characters, though.
Yeah.
So if you are a dude who thinks that, then do that, but with characters.
Yeah.
Did you have another point?
Wow, I have several, but
Well, let's not talk about having several points.
Alright,
Let's get to
okay.
talking about.
Okay. I was gonna ask like how you plan characters, but I think you kind of alluded to it in the beginning. But
You know, I just meet them.
yeah, you have a conversation with them. Have some
No,
talk about
no,
coffee?
it just comes. You know, it's the collective genius, as William Blake put it. It's not a thing where like they fill a slot in the book. Like for instance, I knew that with young daughter, Ione had to be seeing someone else, and this guy had to be a challenge to Wes by being a real man, a respectable grown up,
Yeah.
as opposed to Wes, who's a man child. So like I worked it out from there. But usually it's just logic where it's like, you know, okay, what kind of guy would I only be seeing? Oh, well, a tattooer, that kind of makes sense. Kind of an alternative dude. You know, and he's in this position. Like, I think about that too. Like, their position in the book, they're shaped by their life experience in a lot of ways. A lot of us are. So I also try to think about, like, what, if they have to be in this role, to fit the dynamic with the other characters. And I go very much based on that. To me, I orchestrate very much. You know, I think about Pet Sounds a lot. That's one of my biggest inspirations. And the way that it's conducted, the album. I'm just saying a bunch of words that sound musical because I don't understand anything. The way they make noises and put them together to sound good. But that's true. I think you need that dynamic. You need to find harmony and dissonance in your writing in the same way that music theory employs it. And so with that said, like, you know, when you're writing a song, you usually don't write the drums to play what would normally be a guitar part. And similarly speaking, I have to understand, like, to get this rhythm against this beat or what the fuck ever, I need to use this kind of instrument, this kind of person, what kind of playing style do they have. So, yeah, I mean, if it's going to be a character who murders people, I have to think, what kind of person would murder people? And kind of go from there.
Yeah. No, I get that. Because I usually like to start with different sort of character goals. Like when you're saying like Wes, or Ione starting to see this other guy's opposition Wes, like my character has specific goals, so who's going to stand in his way, I guess, is usually where I like to start. Or
is that a challenge? You're asking the viewer?
Yeah, who's standing in his
I
way?
say
No.
viewer singular.
Yeah, just one
for a
viewer.
reason. That wasn't.
And that's just gonna be me.
If we're lucky.
That's just gonna be me rewatching it as we edit this.
I did rewatch one because I talked about a lot about Renaissance Men, and one of the Renaissance Men's fathers shared it. And it was cool, and I was like,
Yeah.
you know, I talked a lot, and I knew I talked about the release of Second Act and my thoughts, and I was really hoping I didn't say anything bad. Because I don't have bad opinions with any of those guys. I'm very grateful for all those experiences, even if they were negative in the moment, some of them. And I don't think I said anything bad. But, you know, I'm happy. We always say, like, thanks for watching and all that, but we do appreciate it. There's a few people who have said they watched it, and it's really cool, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
But you know, if I ever say anything fucked up about someone, I don't mean it, and I'd feel very guilty about that.
No, I just upload it.
So if any former Renaissance men are watching, whoops.
Anyway, so speaking of appearances, how do you feel about describing character appearance?
I fucking hate it. Well, I don't know. Like, I mean, you know, it depends. I mean, you want to. It's tough. I think of it like an impressionist painting, where you give them just enough that they fill in the lines. You know, you dot it, and you give them the impression. But I try not to stick too much. Like, yes, if a character's a little bit like in a book I'm writing now, characters have gained weight that used to be thinner, or they might be balding to show their age some, or you know, maybe you describe a tattoo or a piercing. You know, that stuff can be necessary, and that can give character for sure. That is a tool that you can employ. But you know, you got to use it sparingly. I don't like. No, I'm not saying I've read amazing descriptions, just a block of text, a paragraph, saying, you know, she had flowing blonde hair, she had a tattoo of the word hussy on her forehead and a pimple on her leg. You know, that kind of shit. Just a paragraph describing their physical appearance. With that said, I don't typically do that. I try to show their appearance. I try to be a little more clever. So if they're doing something, like let's say I wanted to convey that a woman is unavailable to a guy who's flirting with her, I wouldn't say she had a wedding ring on. I would say, you know, she reached out to her drink and there was a ring on her hand. You know, something like that, where you kind of slip it in there.
Yeah.
You kind of roofie the readers with information.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, I've noticed, like, this is kind of different between genres, because in a lot of YA fiction and a lot of that, they go into immense detail describing each character. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't ever remember any of them.
That's kind of fascinating. Would you say, now with the romances, for instance, you know, I'm going to use Twilight as the example because I don't read YA romances. I'm not a 25-year-old guy who's like, oh man, I hope Dave ends up with Becca. Actually, I am exactly that kind of guy. That's why I stay away from it, because it'd be like heroin for me. But, you know, like Edward, they say he's given a lot of detail and all that. But then Bella is not. So that the audience can self-insert as Bella, but they could fantasize about Edward.
No, she's definitely described, I think. Because, yeah, she looks very different than Kristen Stewart does in the movie, but I think she was like, I think she had like reddish hair, I think, in the book. I don't know, honestly, I thought you
Honestly, I'm not even totally against that as a storytelling device. I think it's fascinating. I get why people have an issue with it, because it's not a compelling character. But it intrigues me. I would never do it, I don't think, but I'm interested by it.
See, I thought you were asking me all these Twilight questions because you knew that I read them before.
No, but I love this trend now. When I talk to people about Twilight, which happens like once a year, I always hear now like, oh yeah, I remember reading Twilight, and they're like, but I read it before everybody did. I'm like, oh cool. Yeah, Twilight was a fucking masterpiece before everybody read it. That's what happened. It wasn't, it's like, hey, you like Twilight, that's cool, dude. Yeah, you don't gotta be ashamed, just say you read it. It just makes me laugh every time I hear it.
Yeah, but anyway, I think it seems to be very common in like YA and stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, I guess like, I don't know, but it never really sticks with me. I mean, personally, I put very little description in my own characters unless it's something that's really relevant, either to like personality or something like that. Like, I have one character that I've been working with for years, and the only time I actually bother to describe her is I just talk about her eyes being the kind of eyes that look at you like you're the exact person you want to see, because that's really important to the narrator.
But that's not a physical description either.
Yeah. Well,
it mentions her eyes, but that's an abstract quality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you said, she had like eyes as blue as the clear ocean, or
recycle bin blue.
Yeah. But, you know, that would be a physical description. I mean, I know what you're saying though. I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, but just kind of like, I don't really bring up, or the fact that her hair has been dyed so many times. It's kind of like, what color was it originally, kind of thing, and kind of like a guessing game of sorts. But
well, here's another thing I think is a little less underappreciated compared to physical descriptions. Mannerisms. Like explaining a character's actions in a way that gives character. Yeah. Instead of saying, you know, if a character sits rigid in their chair versus slouching over with an arm slung over the back of it, that conveys two completely different emotions and levels of comfort, as well as personality traits that you can do. And I think that we don't shed nearly enough light on the importance of that, and I'm trying to really grow in that direction myself right now and recognize that as a weak point in my own writing.
Well, I think also the way characters describe other characters not only tells you how they feel about a certain character, but how they themselves are. Like, for instance, if you have a character, like you're reading this book about this lady who's very self-conscious about her weight, and the first thing she notices about other people is their weight, then that adds a level of characterization for her, because you can tell that's something she's just anxious about. Or this perpetually single guy who just sees all these couples, like wherever he goes, he just sees them more often than not. Then it's like, okay, he's like, that's what his main motivation for him is in the story, and everything like that. Like, I see in the romance genre, like making more character-based, like physical descriptions would be relevant. But as far as a lot of other things, I'm like, I don't know. I think in the physical realm, like, less is more, because I'm not really as curious. I want to see them more as people than I do as like the physical, because I like being able
So people don't have physical qualities?
No, I don't know. But no, I mean, like, I like having that sort of imagination, instead of having it be all told to me.
Yeah, I'm not a good reader, so it's very difficult for me to retain physical information a lot of the time. I hate to say that, but like, I'll get more of a preconceived notion how they look based on their actions or dialogue. Then, like, if you say they have brown eyes, I honestly won't remember it after 200 pages.
Yeah.
But if they always walk with a limp or something, I'll remember that. But usually, like, I'll just kind of like, it's like a video game where you make your own protagonist.
Yeah.
I kind of just do that and that's not good. That's a very bad habit that I'm trying to break. But it's also one that I recognize as being one that I have. So what else do you got?
Well, I think that wraps it about up for me. But I guess going off of what you said, yeah, fatal flaw, saving grace, motivation, complex characters would definitely. I guess, okay, one more thing, motivations.
What about it?
I guess good people do bad things. I very much like that kind of dynamic with characters. I think that resonates.
Oh yeah, that is a
makes
point.
it more relatable. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because that's a point I want to bring up, and I kind of forgot about it. I was kind of like racking my mind, because I knew there was something in there that I wanted to bring up. I hate this trend I always see now where it's like, as an author, everything the character doesn't reflect on me. If the bad guy smokes a cigarette, that doesn't mean that I endorse smoking. And I hate that, because they always imply that, like, and it's a big thing where, like, writing today, especially if a character is a role model in any way, if you're supposed to like them, they can never do a bad thing. That is so boring.
Yeah.
I don't want to read about a character that never does bad. I don't want to be bad people.
Yeah.
But I know many good people who have made mistakes. I know many good people who have Achilles heels or flaws or weak points.
Yeah.
So, like, like, if I'm reading a book and it's about some woman who's married, she's doing her thing, but she cheats on her husband, I don't like that in a person. I don't approve of it. With that said, you can write a book about somebody who does something objectively immoral and still write a good book and have a compelling character.
Yeah.
I know that's obvious. That's screenwriting 101, but, like, we live in a world where the most popular forms of storytelling are Marvel movies, so it is important to reiterate these things.
Where pretty much every character is supposed to be like, Captain America, I'm this good dude, and everything like that.
I was actually going to say Marvel actually does a very good job at doing the three.
Yeah.
The harmonious three.
I mean,
because they do all have strengths, weaknesses, and motivations, which I think helps a lot, but I think that they don't have much more sometimes. But I do think that's a big reason people keep watching them and tuning in. I was just storytelling met the potential, which leads me on to my next point, that everything you do in a story is potential that you have to maximize. You have to capitalize on every pregnant moment, because the conflict in a story can bring out so much. It can juice a character in terms of, like, personality. It's the hero's journey defines the hero of the journey as well, and their actions, how they react to things, builds character. Everything you do can build character, especially more so than making a movie or something, which this does apply to as well, this talk. But writing a book, I mean, my God, you have hundreds, you have literally like 70,000 words, usually at least, to do this. You can wring so much out of a character in every paragraph, in every